for when it kind of makes people a little bit angry, and I kind of enjoy that. Oh my gosh, hi. It's been like 5 years since we last spoke. So we're just gonna jump right back into things with my top 10 books of 2023. I'm not gonna really reintroduce myself because if you're here for the books, not for me. So like, we're just not gonna do that. But I do have my Dutch here to get me through because it's been a long time. I'm a little out of practice. So before we officially jump into this, I do want to go over some stats involving these 10 books behind me. I was making this list, and of course I had to rank them. It wouldn't be me if I didn't pick favorites. Of these 10 books, I realized, number one, not a single one of my top 10 came from St. Martin's Press. And considering the boycott going on, I love that for me. Because I wouldn't be able to talk about them anyway. So these are a legit top 10. And St. Martin's Press is nowhere to be seen. The second part of these stats is I have so many different genres. I got into so many new genres this year that I didn't really realize I might enjoy. We have a thriller book. We have a horror book. Both of those are brand new for me. We have some romance books, pretty typical. Fantasy books, pretty typical. And some nonfiction, again, pretty typical. So we got a little bit of everything here. Also, to my knowledge, every single one of these books is written by an author who identifies as female. And I love that for you and I. Really, I love it for me, but I also love it for the both of us. So we're gonna start at my number 10 pick, and we're gonna go up to number 1. Are you ready? Are you ready? I'm ready. Okay, let's do this. My number 10 pick for 2023 is The Ravens by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. This is so shiny in this lighting. I am so sorry. I will try to angle it like this so that you can see it better. All I'm really going to tell you about this book is it is a coven of witches that disguise themselves as a sorority. It is so good. I had such low expectations for this book, to be totally honest. I didn't think I was going to love it, and then I flew through it in like a day. You're going to find that with most of these books, they are books that I just flew through because I just devoured them. I knew all the things that were going to happen. Like, I knew all these twists, but I didn't care that I called all the twists because I just had such a good time. So this is my number 10. Something I forgot to mention at the beginning of this video is that half of these books have sapphic elements. So really love that for us. My number 9 pick is my first nonfiction pick of this video, and it is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I have never read Carmen Maria Machado before, but after reading this, I would definitely like to. If you have somehow not heard about this book at some point in time, I don't know where you've been and why you got here, but this book is fantastic. It is a memoir about Carmen Maria Machado's life, specifically during a point in her life when she was in an abusive relationship with another woman, and it is so beautifully told. Obviously, if that sounds like it might be triggering to you, don't read it, but I thought it was fantastic. Number 8 on my list is another nonfiction, and that is Unlikable Female Character by Anna Bogutskaya. You have probably heard about this as well. It's not quite as popular as the Carmen Maria Machado book, but I still feel like this is pretty commonly seen. But if you somehow haven't heard about this book, it basically just goes through all of these different archetypes surrounding female characters within media, specifically in like movies, but I believe she mentions TV shows too, if I'm remembering correctly. And just kind of how that reflects the way that society views women, and it's super fascinating. This was actually the first book that I read after I watched the Barbie movie over the summer, so really I was in my female rage era when I read this, but it's fascinating. Another one of those books that I just kind of flew through. It was so good. Getting into the fantasy books now. Number 7 is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Have I read the Caraval series? No. Do I remember what happens in this that happens to spoil the Caraval series? No, I do not. So am I going to read that in the future? Possibly. I do have the second and third book to this series already because how could I not? It was so good. All I can really explain for this book, I am terrible at synopses if you couldn't already tell. For some reason, this gave me Kingdom of the Wicked vibes. So if you enjoyed that, I would recommend picking this up, and vice versa. Carrie Maniscalco wrote that. I should have mentioned that. I'll throw up a picture over here by the lovely Miss Taylor. I feel like they're great comp titles for each other. This book is basically about a girl who was in love with this boy, but he's supposed to marry some other girl, and she's like, you know what? I want to basically strike a deal with the demon to get this man back. And it just kind of goes south from there. Almost literally? Actually literally? The next book on my list is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This, you will find out about me. Inevitably. I love books about female relationships, regardless of what they are. Mother-daughter relationships, actually like sapphic relationships, sister relationships. I really love a sister relationship. I just love reading about female relationships. And House of Hollow follows, I believe it's three sisters who, when they were younger, went missing. And no one had any clue where they were. And then suddenly they just emerged from the forest with no memory. Fast forward several years later, when the book actually like takes place. This is where things get a little bit spotty. If I'm remembering correctly, one of the sisters pulls a bit of a John Winchester in like a dad's been on a hunting trip and he hasn't been back in a few days sort of a situation, where she has basically dropped off the face of the earth, and the other two sisters are like, something's wrong. Where is she? So they try to find her, and they may learn some information about what happened to them when they disappeared so many years ago. We've officially made it to the top 5. My number 5 pick is Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellfleur. After reading this book, did I go out and purchase every single other book that Alexandria Bellfleur has written? Yes, I did. This is a sapphic Pride and Prejudice retelling. Very loosely Pride and Prejudice. I didn't even realize that's what it was when I first read it, so you don't need to know anything about Pride and Prejudice before you go into this. Also, I hate Pride and Prejudice, so the fact that I love this, you don't need to have any attachment to Pride and Prejudice, but I'm sure if you love it, you'll see some cute little attachments with it. We follow 2 main characters. One of them is an astrologer, and she and her best friend are teaming up with this guy on creating a dating app surrounding astrology and like matching people up based on astrological signs. And his sister is our love interest, and she is a little bit more of like a strict type A kind of a gal. She kind of thinks astrology is a little bit of BS. She's either an accountant or an actuary. I cannot remember which one. But she's a little bit more buttoned up, and they get set up on a blind date, and it does not go well. This was so much fun. Book number 4 is a big surprise, and that was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I did listen to a good bit of this on audio, and the narrator of this audiobook has very quickly become one of my favorite narrators. However, she hasn't narrated that much, yet she has narrated a bunch of like children's Peppa Pig stories. Very strange. Anyway, this book follows 2 different women 200 years apart. One of them is an owner of an apothecary. This apothecary is meant to help women. They don't really serve men. They're kind of a secret because witch trials and things are a thing. 200 years later, we have a woman who happens to be in the area where this happened, and she starts learning about this apothecary that has been lost to time. And it was just a really good time. We're at the top 3, and I know at this point you're probably like, girly, didn't you say there was horror and thriller on this list? Where is that? They're in the top 2 right here. So just wait. It's coming. My number 3 pick is another romance, and that is Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail by Ashley Herring Blake. If you somehow have not heard about this book at some point in time, I don't know where you've been. This is technically the second book in a companion series. The first book is Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Really enjoyed that book. Didn't give it 5 stars. This one got 5 stars. And I think it's mostly because I really enjoyed the love interest in this book. This follows 2 characters who, they don't quite hate each other, but they don't see eye to eye in a situation involving a house that is going up for sale, potentially. One person is a member of the family who owns this house. She doesn't really want it to go up for sale. The other woman is somewhat in charge of helping to renovate the house and prepare it to be sold. So there's a little bit of drama going on, but prior to them even finding out that they are communicating about this house, and they're also going to be on a TV show. So yeah, I really enjoyed the love interest in this book, which is why I think I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed Delilah Green, because I wasn't a huge fan of the love interest in that book. Coming in at the number 2 spot is a horror pick, and that is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. Everyone was reading this back in 2022. It took me until 2023 to get to it, so sorry. But it was incredible. This was my first real foray into the horror genre, and I feel like it really just let me know that I can in fact like horror, and I'm still figuring out what I enjoy in horror, but it seems to me that I enjoy some horror that happens to have a little bit of a literary element to it, where it's exploring something deeper. This particular book happens to explore the concept of grief, because we have a woman who has gone on sort of a deep sea expedition and has gone missing, and her wife has pretty much assumed she's dead, but then she comes back, and so her wife has sort of had to grieve the loss of her wife. But then when she comes back, she's not quite the woman that she knew, and so there's also discussion about the grief of losing a person who is still there. And it was just really beautifully written. After this, I actually read Julia Armfield's short story collection, and it was fantastic, so I will pretty much read anything she comes out with at this point. My number one favorite book of 2023 is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I realized through reading this book that I love the trope of a murderous teacher. Please do not tell my students that I said that, or actually, maybe do tell them. This book follows a professor who kills men that harm women and don't get punished for it. So she decides to punish them herself. I need to find some more thrillers in this vein, because this was absolutely amazing. I flew through this in like 2 sittings. Also, this is on Kindle Unlimited, if you happen to use that. So that's how I read it initially, and then I loved it, and so I purchased this copy secondhand. And those are my top 10 books of the year. I hope you are having a lovely day, and I will, fingers crossed, be talking to you really soon. Bye!